You may start.
Namaste Yatirajaya Vivekagandasuraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Neta. Good evening to everyone. So let us start our first class on Jnana Yoga. The last class was an introductory lesson, which was where we discussed some of the qualities which are essential for an aspirant of Jnana Yoga in a traditional way. We saw a sadhana chatushtaya sampanna. An adhikari should have a sadhana chatushtaya sampanna. He should have four main qualities to be an aspirant to be successful in Jnana Yoga. And they are Viveka, Vairagya, Samadhi, Shatka, Sampatti, and Mukshutva. And once you have these qualities, then you do upasana, you worship through ritualistic manner any personal god whom you like, and through upasana you get chitta shuddhi. And after that, after chitta shuddhi is attained, you approach a guru, learn Vedanta from a guru through Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. You attain the liberation. So this is the pathway laid out by Jnana Yoga for a aspirant. So first is sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, adhikaritva, and then upasana, and after upasana, uh, approaching guru and getting the necessary knowledge, and acquiring that knowledge, you contemplate on it and get established in that knowledge. So this is the traditional way. So Swamiji will explain this Jnana Yoga in his own inimitable way, in a way that is much more suitable for the modern generation. And these lectures, there are 16 lectures of Swamiji have been compiled and published in a book form under the title Jnana Yoga. Most of these lectures were given by Swamiji during his visit to London in 1896. He gave these lectures in two groups. Initially, he gave three lectures. Those of those of you who have read Swamiji's biography know that Swamiji first went to the West in 1893 to America. He stayed in America from 1893 to 96. And in 96, for the first time, he visited London, United Kingdom, and for a brief stay, that time he met his disciple, Sturdy, and he stayed in Sturdy's house. They had communicated over letter for many years, but first time they met in London, and Swamiji stayed in Sturdy's house, and he gave few lectures. And after staying for a few months, Swamiji went on a vacation to Switzerland. He stayed in Alps. He stayed there for a few months, and then he came back to London again and started his lectures. So these lectures of Jnana Yoga that we are going to study were mostly given by Swamiji before and after his trip to Switzerland. And these, the first three lectures, they are called The Necessity of Religion. It was delivered by Swamiji on 7th June 1896. And then the next week, he gave a lecture, A Universal Religion, on June 14. And afterwards, on the third Sunday, he gave a lecture, The Real and Apparent Man, on June 20. So these three lectures were given in the Royal Institute of Painters in Watercolors in London. And they were attended by a large number of people, and they were very successful, and they were taken in shorthand by Goodwin. And this Goodwin, he was a stenographer. He came to Swamiji as a stenographer, but later on became his disciple, and to him we owe all these lectures. And after giving these three lectures, Swamiji, the summer And in summer, traditionally, everyone goes to cooler climates. So it is not possible for Swamiji to continue his lectures. So he also went on a vacation. And from there, from Switzerland, Swamiji wrote a letter on August 6, 1896 to an Indian disciple, where he said, there is a big London work waiting for me next month. And it proved to be true because Swamiji in the months of October and November gave the famous lectures on Maya. In London, the lectures are Maya and illusion, Maya and evolution of the conception of God, Maya and freedom and absolute and manifestation. And apart from that, he also gave lectures, God in everything, realization, unity in diversity, the freedom of the soul, and the practical Vedanta lectures, four of them. So all these are very, very important, and all of them have been clubbed together in the Jnana Yoga lectures. So the reception, as we come to know, has been extraordinary. And even though the audience were totally new to Advaita Vedanta, but such was the power of Swamiji's personality, they were carried away to a higher realm where they could experience the truth which were expounded by Swamiji. In fact, that's what once a brother disciple of Swamiji asked him, Swamiji, how is it possible that your listeners could comprehend these subtle truths of Vedanta? Swamiji said that they were in another realm at that time. It is by his power, Swamiji had lifted their minds to a higher realm where they could comprehend these subtle truths. And there are so many reminiscences that were left. And once a lady who was present on one of these lectures later said, I quote her, I have attended church services regularly all my life. Their monotony and their lack of vitality had made them barren and distasteful. I went to them because others went, and one hates to be peculiar. In order to conform to social customs, she used to go to the church. Since I heard Swamiji, light has flooded into religion. It is real, it lives, it has a new glad meaning, and is altogether transformed me. So that is the experience of one of the listeners. So with this brief introduction, let us now directly start our first chapter of Jnana Yoga, the necessity of religion. So I'm not going to read it word by word. So I will discuss it paragraph by paragraphs or ideas by ideas. Wherever it is necessary, I will just read out Swamiji's exact words. So the first Swamiji begins with the necessity of religion. Why is religion necessary in this modern age? So this is the question which agitates our mind also. Many people also, even now, has this thought. What is the necessity of religion? Can one not lead a good life without being overtly religious or spiritual? What is the necessity? So that is the idea which we will discuss. And before going directly into the necessity of religion, Swamiji first explains the origin of religion. And he says, the first sentence, Swamiji begins like this: of all the forces that have worked and are still working to mold the destinies of the human race, certainly is more potent than that, the manifestation of which we call religion. So religion is the most potent force that is working to mold the destinies of the human race. And Swamiji defines religion as the greatest cohesive impulse that is that is on play among the human beings. The greatest cohesive impulse, the greatest force that brings people together, that unites people together and overcoming all other differences. And for our own motherland, India, we know how we have been divided politically almost most of our known history. So India had never been a single kingdom, single ruled by a single power for the majority of its history. Only for a brief period of time during the Mauryan Empire at its zenith, Mughal Empire, and later at the fag end during the British rule, there was a semblance of unity. There was some central uh, administration governing the most of India. That too, the entire the motherland was never united under a single power, be it Indian or foreign. So we have been divided politically from the time immemorial, and we have been also differ with one another in terms of our language, in terms of our dress, food, customs. In fact, there are more things that divide us than that which unites us. But still, we claim the identity that we are one nation, that we are one culture. That is a prevalent identity, even though politically we may be divided in so many myriad ways, but still we always believe that we belong to a single nation, that Bharata Desha or Jambu Deepa or whatever way, right from Bharata to till now, we believe that the land which is surrounded by, which is bounded by Himalayas in the north and the seas, ocean in the south, is a what we call as a Bharatvarsha. And this identity has always been there. And the main cohesive force that has kept all of us together is our religion. So from north to south, east to west, or everyone in this land of Bharata Khanda has always believed that we are Hindus, and we have been following this, even though we may live in different geographical regions within this motherland. And this is something which is very unique and which has been there from the time immemorial. And so that is a very big plus point of a religion. In fact, when we speak about the necessity of religion, the more we strengthen our identity as with our religion, the more indirectly we strengthen our motherland. So that's why Swamiji first said, you intensify the spirituality, you intensify religion, the rest will take care of itself. The um, the backbone of Indian nation is its religion. Religion is the reason later why India lives. And if you want to make India strong, you have to strengthen a religion. Whenever a religion has been weakened, India as a nation also has been weakened. So Swamiji always felt that there should be first a rejuvenation of our religion for India as a nation to rise. And so this close connection between our nation and our religion, it is almost intermingled with one another. And you cannot separate one from the another, however much we may try to do so. And this is why religion, for particularly for us, for Hindus, it is very much necessary. Stronger our religion, stronger our identity with our religion, and stronger will our nation also be. And that's the first point. And then Swamiji moves on to the second point, which is he explores the beginnings of religion. How did the religion originate? And he said, behind every religion, there is something supernatural. And he said that the religions were not a creation of human beings. Religion is not the creation of human mind. And they have been the product of something which is beyond our human mind. And when we trace the worship, the origin of religion, there are two main schools. One school of thought says that hence ancestor worship is the beginning of religion. In every old culture, we find that there is a worship of the forefathers. And this is very much amplified in the one of the oldest civilization, which is the civilization of the Egyptians. The Egyptians, Babylonian, Chinese, and many South American races, Native American races, they all believed in ancestral worship. They started the journey with the worship of their own ancestors. They believed that the body, the soul lives even after the death of the body. That is prevalent. And in the Egyptian civilization, particularly, they believe that there is a double. The soul is the exact double of the physical body. And after the physical body dies, the soul lives separately from the body, but eternally connected to the body. And if anything happens to this body, physical body, the soul of that body also, that person is also damaged. So they took great effort to preserve the physical body, and that led to mummifications and also this construction of pyramids. So these bodies can be preserved and kept safe and without any harm to it, because any harm to the physical body will lead to the harm to the its counterpart, its spiritual counterpart. So this ancestral worship was found is the only worship we find in the Egyptian civilization. And then Swamiji takes up the Babylonians. He said the Babylonians also had a similar idea, but only difference in which we find is in the case of Babylonians, this double is loses all idea of love. There is no love lost between the soul and the body. It is something. It becomes very cruel, or it becomes very violent. And he says this soul, it frightens the living to give it food and drink and help it in various ways. It loses even its affection for its own children, own wife. And next to Chinese and Babylonian, in Chinese civilization also, Swamiji says that it is more or less an ancestor worship, the worship of the forefathers. In India also, even now, we worship our forefathers. We offer them pinda on the day of passing away. But our idea of life after death is somewhat different from the Egyptian and Babylonian civilization. We believe that we don't believe in body doubles. We don't believe that the soul remains eternally connected to its physical body. And we believe that soul is we call it as Sukshma Sharira. And this Sukshma Sharira, for a moment, for a time being, it inhibits a Stula Sharira. And once that Stula Sharira is damaged, is of no use, then that is renounced, and another Stula Sharira is taken up. And that way, this Sukshma Sharira, it keeps moving from one body to another body till it attains liberation. And because of that, we never had any attachment to this physical body. And as Gita famously put it, it is like just like a piece of shirt which we keep changing. Vashamse jirnani yada vigaya navani grignati naro parani tata shariraya vigaya jirnani anyani sangyati navani dehi. Just like you replace a torn shirt with another new shirt, the soul also replaces one body with another body. The body is immaterial, so only we don't preserve it. We cremate the body and destroy it. And whereas we believe that the soul is eternal, and this soul for the time being gets associated with the Sukshma Sharira. And the Sukshma Sharira contains, what does the Sukshma Sharira contains? And going deeper into Vedanta, it contains Manas, Buddhi, Chitta, and Agankara, the four aspects of mind. It contains Pancha Pranas, it contains Pancha Indriyas, and both Karma Indriyas and the Jnana Indriyas. So these total 19 are the components of the Sukshma Sharira, mind, Manas, Buddhi, Chitta, and Agankara, Pancha Prana, Pancha Jnanendriyas, and Pancha Karmendriyas. So with this, it moves from one body to another, which Gita famously tells, Utkramantam Stitam Vapi Unjanam Bhagunam Vidam Vimudanalu Pashyanti Jnana Chakshusha. Those who have Jnana Chakshu can see the transmigration of this Sukshma Sharira from one Sthula Sharira to the another. So for others, for the North people, it is not possible to find. So This is one aspect. And another, but for a time being, for a limited time, Hindus also believe that this body, after leaving this body, this soul for a short period of time remain connected with its original, the previous life. But that connection is very temporal, only for a limited time. Afterwards, the soul moves on in its journey, breaking all its connection with its previous life. So but this idea was also there in Indian civilization, but it is not the only idea, and nor it is the most important one. And then Swamiji takes up the another uh, another school of thought, which says the religion uh, came into being from the nature worship, and the ancient Aryan literature shows that this nature worship is the only worship which we find in the ancient religion of the Parsis, Zend Avastha. There also you find only this nature worship, worship of the natural forces, and its counterpart, the Vedas. Also, we find this nature worship. We find the worship of Indra, Varuna, Agni, Vayu, and all these forces only. So all these nature forces uh, are there is some they are divinized. So they are not considered to be a material force, a material energy, but a human mind tries to see that there must be something divine, something a greater power behind this all these forces. So they never took it as a just a material force, but they spiritualized it, and they assigned one particular god for each one of these Panchadevatas we call Agni, Vayu, Apa, and even for Chandra and Surya also we say they are all gods. So this nature worship is very much inherent in our Aryan worship in our Vedas, and but these two are the two primary things. But Swamiji says, yes, both are true. Religion may have arisen, but the religion that we know now may have arisen from either way, from the worship of the ancestors and also from the worship of the um, nature. And in fact, in the Gita, Sri Krishna tells this. He gives acceptance to this nature worship. He says in the 9th chapter, he says 23rd, Epyanya Devata Bhakta Yajante Shraddhayanvita Epi Mameva Kaunteya Yajanti Avidi Purakam Yanti Deva Vrata Devan Pitrun Yanti Pitru Vrata Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja Yanti Bhutyaji Lopimam. He says, if you worship the Devatas, you will go to the Devatas. If you worship the Pitrus, you will go to the Pitrus. If you worship the Bhutas, you will go to Bhutas. And if you worship me, you will come to me. And in fact, in the 7th chapter, he will again tell, yo yapyam tamim bhakta shraddhaya architam ichchati tasya tasya achalam shraddham tameva vidatayagam. He says, suppose if a person, human being, is very much attached to a worship, say a particular devata or a particular Bhuta or a particular forefather worship, he says even that feeling, that devotion is also mine only. It is only I strengthen the devotion because I find that they are not still ready to worship a higher God. And these various devatas are nothing but various manifestations of my power only. It's not that there are two things. One is the evil, the devil and God. This duality is not there in Hindu religion. So here Krishna says even those gods, they are also different manifestations of me. If a person is attached to that, I strengthen that devotion because gradually through those worshipping those gods, he will gradually come to me. So this has been the philosophy, and this was also we find in Krishna's life in the worship of the Indra, and how the Brajas the Vraja Gopis and Gopas, how they were worshipping Indra and Varuna, and out of fear. And the main idea is why you worship all these nature gods. You want to be safe from them. You want to protect yourself from them. You don't want to expose yourself to their wrath. So, in order to please them, out of fear, you go and offer worship. And this is not real religion. Religion is not there. So only that is the main point. That is so. That's why this is not considered a true religion. When you worship all these devatas are a manifestation of one particular supreme God, then out of love, then that is nothing wrong. But when you worship devatas, seeing them as a separate entity, seeing them and out of fear, out to get something out of them, then that is not a real religion, and that has to be condemned because it keeps us at a lower state of evolution. So only when the in the Krishna's life you will find, and when these people, the Vrajavasis, every year they have to offer all their offerings to the Indra. Why? If they do not satisfy Indra, then Indra will become angry. He will send flood. He will send all his Agni and others and destroy their prosperity, their life, and their wealth. And so, out of fear, they were trying to satisfy Indra. And Sri Krishna wanted to liberate them from this fear. And he want them to elevate them to a higher state of religion so that they are not getting stuck up at a lower level. So only you find all that story of Govardhana and giving them protection with the Govardhana, fighting with the Indras and vanquishing him, and also telling the Vrajavasis, from now on I will protect you, you please me. So this is the evolution, the gradual evolution of religion, which we see that human beings first worship these nature gods out of fear, seeking protection from them. Then as they evolved, as the religion evolved, then slowly the fear was replaced by love and affection. Because through religion there is no fear. So these are the two primary sources of religion. One is the ancestral worship, and another is the nature worship. And Swamiji says there is something which is, they are not two mutually contradictory approaches to God. There is something which is common to both of them. What is the common? The common thing is both of them try to worship a power that is beyond the senses, that is beyond the uh, level of our normal mundane existence. Be it the ancestors or be it the devatas, they don't dwell on our same plane. They are something we see them as some living above our plane, someone who has greater powers than what we have. But this is something which is very common. They are not limited by they do not suffer the same limitations that we have. We cannot move from one place to another. We cannot be simultaneously at two places, whereas they can be simultaneously, they can move. So they are not bound by the material laws, by the physical laws. They are spiritual. This is something which is very common. So Swamiji says these two views, though they seem to be contradictory, can be reconciled on a third basis, which to my mind is the real germ of religion, and that I propose to call the struggle to transcend the limitations of the senses. So whether man goes to the spirit or to the ancestors, what he wants to understand is to understand the power that is working behind them. Whether it is the power behind the nature, the power behind after death. So he also wants to go beyond the limitations of his current existence. His desire for freedom is the most fundamental desire which is instrumental in the evolution of a true religion and also in the evolution of a personality. the desire for freedom. We want to go beyond our limitations and we want to be free. We don't want to be bound by any other force. And this desire for freedom is the main impetus, which is the common impetus behind various approaches. And so this is the final conclusion which Swamiji comes. In fact, this desire has been always there in the human mind. If those of you who have read Kathopanishad, you know that as this third boon, the first boon Nachiketa asked is something very natural, human, which he said is, my father should recognize me as his son. He should not think me as a ghost because I have gone to Yamaloka and I have returned. He should accept me as his own son. He should not be afraid of me. That is the first boon. And the second boon he wanted is about the heaven. He wanted to know about the further loka. And the third thing he wanted to know is something which is very much the perennial thought in the human mind. He asked, Ayam prete vichikitsa mrishe asti iti eke nayam asti iti cha eke etad vidyam anusishtatvaya varanamesha bharastratiya. So there are, I want, as a third boon, I want this word. There are some people who say after death, there is nothing exists. And there are some who say that the soul exists even after death. I want to know the truth. What really happens? Ayam prete vichikitsa means there is confusion, there is doubt. Asti iti eke. Some people say there is something exists. And nayam asti iti cha eke. There are some say nothing exists after death. You are the best person, and Yama is not the Yama which we find in the Puranas. The Yama in Vedanta, in the Vedas, is a Brahma Vidya Acharya. That's how Shankaracharya defines it. And Mrityu, even in the Rudra also you will find Mrityave Swaha, Mrityave Swaha, Om Namo Rudraya, Mrityave Swaha. Mrityu is in Vedanta, in Veda, is not the same Yama which we picturize him in the Puranas. In the Vedas, the Yama is a Brahma Vidya Acharya. He is a Brahmagyani. And so he is the right person to say what exists after death. So this is the question which comes to everyone's mind. It cannot be stifled. It cannot be put down. In fact, that is one of the criticism which Swamiji says about Buddha. And Buddha never discussed about this any supernatural things. He never said anything about God or religion or life after death. Whenever questions were to him, he always avoided it. Not that he does not know, not that nothing exists beyond this material plane, but he felt that the energy should not be wasted in discussing all those things. What a man has to do is to lead a life of virtue and try to practice the Ashtanga Marga and attain the Nirvana. And once you attain Nirvana, you will come to know directly what is the truth. So why speculate on it? Why waste energy before? That was Buddha's thought. But Swamiji says, you cannot tell people, you don't have to think about what exists after death or what is the supreme reality. You first try to, in this life, you try to realize the truth. And what is the nature of the truth, you don't have to bother. So that is impossible. Human mind is trained, it has been designed, it will always speculate, it will always want to know the truth beyond. It cannot be put off. So this desire to understand the power working behind the material phenomena is the real source of religion. So that is the conclusion we come. And then we move on to the third topic. How do we experience religion? When do we first, what is the first intimation of real religion in a human life? When do we come into contact with the supernatural things which are beyond the rational plane. When is the first intimation of the divinity come into our life? Swamiji says it happens in our dreams. The first glimpse of religion always comes through dreams. The first idea of immortality also comes through dreams. It is only in dreams that we first try to give up our association with this body. In dream, you are no more connected, no more tied down to this the body mind complex. You become free. You experience another reality. In fact, a Swapna Avastha is considered something in Vedanta Vichara, in Mandukya Upanishad and all. We do this Avastha Traya Vichara. In Swapna Avastha, Jagrata Avastha, and Sushupti Avastha, we compare all these three, we uh, reason it out through Shravana, Manana, Nididasana, and we come to know that all these three avasthas are unreal. They are all varying, that only the witness behind these three avasthas, he alone is real. Then you stop associating with these avasthas and you associate yourself, identify yourself with the witness of the avastha, three avasthas, which is the Chaturtha, which is the Turiya. So the first glimpse, so dreams also is one of the planes in which we experience something beyond our material existence. In fact, I think Swamiji was saying this, Swamiji Thakur, he said, even to see a ghost is a greater achievement than not seeing any ghost at all. Even because ghost also is something which is a subtle material. It is also, it is not spiritual. It is a sukshma sharira. A soul moving around in a sukshma sharira is what we call a ghost, and which normally we don't see. But even a sight of a ghost is something which is something which is beyond material experience, a physical experience, something we can call a supernatural experience. So even that is something better than having nothing. And so this dream, speaking about the dream avastha, in fact, there is a conversation. Once Master Maharshi had a beautiful dream. He said he was sitting on the bank of a river, and the river was in spate, and he could not. He don't know how will he cross the river and go to the other shore. Then a person came with a boat, and he said, "Come, you get up on this boat. I will let you. I will take you to the other shore." And Master Maharshi traveled that and he crossed it. And the moment he told this, Thakur became said, "Oh, horripilations are happening in my body. What a great, what a great dream you had. It is a sign of your spiritual progress, your spiritual hunger. You have this desire for liberation, which is now manifesting in this dream form." But Master Maharshi said, but it's only a dream. What is so special? But Thakur said, but no. Even such a dream is also significant. It has its own significance. In fact, in the dream, there are so many spiritual, so many almost all great spiritual aspirants have got some spiritual experience in the dream, and there have been visions. There have been teachings, and which have changed the whole life. And even in the direct disciples also, you can see. And even in the case of a person, say like Ramana Maharshi also, you will find how his confrontation with his own mortality came in his almost like a dream-like states of Navastha. One day he was lying down in his, he felt very tired. He felt he was about to die, and he felt that something from his body coming out, and watching his own body living in a very inert way. And then that was the beginning of his spiritual life, his spiritual experience. So Swamiji says the first glimpse of religion most often happens in the state of the dream. And slowly, and so only the spiritual dreams are also true. And it is an indication of your state of mind. In fact, any dream is an indication of our state of mind. Whatever thoughts which predominate our Jagrata Avastha, that only reflects itself as a dream state. If in a Jagrata Avastha, waking state, if your life is predominantly spiritual, uh, if you engage your mind in spiritual thoughts, then it is natural, even in dream, such spiritual thoughts continue. In fact, it is said that even japa also continues, even in the sleep also. For a sincere spiritual aspirant who does japa continuously, ajapa japa, in his waking state, the mind continues to repeat the name of his God even in sleep. There is no break at all. So these are all matters of experience which anyone can try and find out. So Swamiji says that the dream state is the first place when we experience something beyond our normal mundane existence. But more we go deeper and deeper, that we try to get something spiritual. This spiritual knowledge, this religion is obtained only in a higher state of mind. It is not obtained in the ordinary state. So only in the Gita, Krishna will tell, Natumam Shakyase Drashtum Anenaiva Swachakshusha Divyam Dadami Te Chakshu Pashyame Yoga Maishwaram. In the Vishwarupa Darshana, he says, my Vishwarupa Darshana, my transcendental reality cannot be perceived by you in your current state of existence. For that, you should have a Dipya Chakshu. You should have a Jnana Chakshu. And so that is a symbolic way of telling you should have, you can experience my transcendental only at a higher state of mind. So unless our mind rises to that state, then we cannot perceive that reality. So just keeping our mind engrossed in this lower state and then asking for higher experience is foolishness. Many times, many ordinary people come and challenge spiritual personalities, telling, if God is true, then show it to me. That is, we want to have the transcendental experience, even though rooted in its grounded state of mind. So unless the mind rises to that higher experience, you cannot perceive that reality. That does not mean that reality is absent, that reality is not there. But you have not raised to that level. And to tell that in my grounded state, I should perceive that higher reality is never going to be possible. And normal, what we call rational scientific people, they tell that higher spiritual truths have to be demonstrated, has to be brought down to the level of this grounded level, and there it has to be demonstrated. If it is not possible, then it means that these truths are all fictitious. This is totally unscientific. That's what Swamiji is going to tell us, that religion is a truth that has to be experienced at a super conscious state of mind. Once I have remembered of a anecdote in the life of Swami Nirvedananda Ji Maharaj. And Nirvedananda Ji Maharaj is the founder of he is a disciple of Raja Maharaj, Swami Brahmananda Ji, and he is the founder of our Bulgaria Students' Home. And this conversation happened in Bulgaria Students' Home. And one day he was talking with a scientist, a famous scientist. Now I don't remember his name. And where the scientist was telling him, if religion is true, why you cannot demonstrate it to me? Why, if just like scientific truths can be demonstrated to every person, then why can't religious truths can also be demonstrated? If it cannot be demonstrated, then we cannot accept it as a truth. For truth to be truth, it should be able to be experienced by all people at all times following a certain common norms. So that is the characteristic of scientific truth. So the spiritual truths should also conform to this norm. So that was the argument of that scientific, the famous scientist. And then Maharaj asked him, there was a gardener was working in the lawn nearby. Then Maharaj said, can you explain this gardener and the quantum mechanics, the Einstein's theory of relativity? Can you explain it to the gardener? Then the scientist said, how can I explain it to him? And he is illiterate. How can he understand these complex theories? Then Maharaj said, then just because he cannot understand this truth, can we say that your truths are false, that it is not truth? Then the scientist said, no, how can I say that my truths are false? Only if he is illiterate, he is uneducated. If this person is educated, if he is trained in scientific way of thinking, in scientific tools, mathematics, then if he has that sufficient prerequisite for understanding this higher science, then he can understand. Since he doesn't have these prerequisites, now he is not able to understand. Then Mara said, I am also telling the same thing. In order to understand the spiritual truths, your mind should attain a particular state of evolution. And unless you attain that unless you attain that state, you cannot appreciate the spiritual truth. What is true for your secular truth is also equally true for your spiritual truth. So, when it comes to religion, every true religion is a product of a superconscious experience in all religions. So, in the case of our rishis, we know that the rishis were mantra drashta. The definition of rishi is rishati apnoti atmatattvam iti rishi. A person who is able to see the truth, who has attained the truth, is a rishi. He is a drashta. He sees the truth before his eyes, and that he expresses to others. And so he is a mantra drashta, and this mantra drashta is open to anyone. Anyone can be a mantra drashta. Even Swamiji said, everyone has to be a rishi. That is the ideal before us. It's not that only in Vedas that we had a few rishis, but even in modern age, everyone can be a rishi and everyone should be a rishi. In fact, the real religion begins only after we have raised ourselves to the state of the rishi. As Raja Maharaj said, religion begins with realization. Religion begins when you see this religious truth face to face, when you experience it firsthand. And that comes not at the ordinary state of mind. So Swamiji says, this state of things we find in all the organized religions of the world, and that is the ecstasy or inspiration. In all organized religions, the prophets, founders, messengers are declared to have gone into states of mind that were neither waking nor sleeping, in which they came to face with a series of facts relating to what is called the spiritual freedom. So, when we speak about the genesis of religion, Swamiji says that the genesis of religion lies in the higher state of mind, which we call it as superconscious state, or which we call it as ecstasy, or inspiration, or samadhi, or whatever way you may call it. And this is common across all religions. Every spiritual truth in this world, in every religion, has been attained only through higher state of mind. So we know in the case of Jesus, he spent 40 days in the mountain, in the forest. And at the end of 40 days, he attained knowledge and he came back. Same with the case of Muhammad also. And there, both in the case of Muhammad and Jesus, there was an angel called Gabriel which came and gave this truth. And even Muhammad, 3 times the Gabriel told that first surah of Quran and made Muhammad repeat it. And Muhammad did not understand. He was afraid. He went, came back. He told his wife, and his wife consoled him and said, "Oh, what whatever that you have experienced and learned is not something a mirage or a construct of your mind, but it is a real spiritual experience. There is truth behind it." So this is the secret which we find in all religions. Buddha also experienced higher truth in samadhi, in a higher state of mind. So we know that mind exists in various. So there is, just like a subconscious mind, there is a conscious mind, and above that is a superconscious mind. So if we want to experience real religion, we have to. This is the real source of all religion across the world. So this much we have seen, and then Swamiji will, and just I will conclude this chapter with the saying of Swamiji. Thus, a tremendous statement is made by all religions that the human mind at certain moments transcends not only the limitation of the senses, but also the power of reasoning. It then comes face to face with facts, which it could never have sensed, never could have reasoned. These facts are the basis of all the religions of the world. So, outwardly, religions may differ from one another. Outwardly, there may be so many, but at its core, the very source of religion is common. So, only we as a Hindus, we believe that it is the same truth which is being expressed in various parts of the world at various times, only adapted to the uh, time, place, and circumstances and the necessity of the times. And then this original core of spiritual truth gets covered by other deshachara, lokacharas, or what we call as smritis, with other things and gets mixed up. The spiritual and non-spiritual gets mixed up in religion, and people gets confused, taking the non-spiritual part as a spiritual core, and they put more emphasis, they forget the spiritual teachings of the religion and put more emphasis on the non-spiritual portions, then the religion becomes a source of destruction in the world. Whereas when we emphasize the core truths of the religion, which were obtained by this higher state of consciousness, that can only bring peace, that can only bring happiness, that can only bring good to the humanity. And whatever that has been obtained from that higher state of consciousness, and whatever that we find destructive in religion, that which divides and that which cause suffering in the humanity, they were never obtained from a higher state. Rather, they were the products of the human mind at its lower level. And because these two gets mixed up, religion gets a bad name, as Swamiji will later on say. But it is not the fault of religion that religion is utilized by people for their own selfish interest. But the real core of religion is spiritual, which is accessible to all human beings. So the genesis of religion lies in this superconscious state of mind. And that's where we have to go if we want to come face to face with the religion. So with this, we shall stop today's lecture. We shall continue it next month. So, we shall Hari Guru, Tatsat, Sri Ram Krishna, Namaste.
What?
Yes.
So you said that Swamiji said religion is not the product of a human mind, or
Yes.
uh, but
No.
uh, but if it is not, so how did you say that? I little confused there.
No, religion is never a product of human mind. In fact, Vedas we define it Tasya Nishvasitam Veda. Veda is a breath of the Supreme. And it is never, it is the eternal truth. how Vedas, as Swamiji defined, they are eternal. Vedas are eternal. They are spiritual truths. They were always existent. And only they have been caught by some mind and made accessible to other people. But they have been in existence for eternally. And it's not that this knowledge, this spiritual truths have been created at any particular point of time. Once we say, then it means there must be a creator also. We say this knowledge is eternal. It has always been there. And only when we come to that particular frequency, we can catch this knowledge. So only every rishi is considered to be associated with a particular mantra or a particular Veda, particular shaka, because they have managed to uh, come into contact with that portion of that eternal truth, and which they gave it in their name. But the rishis, they are themselves, they are not the creators of Vedas. They are not a Jesus or a Muhammad. They are all messengers only. The eternal spiritual truth manifested through them into this mortal world. They were just messengers. No one is a creator. Not Vedas, neither avatars, not the rishis, nor the prophets. No one. Because these truths, they were eternal. They were always there.
Another question is that you said talked about mantra drashta, but when you translated in English, you said that they are seers of the truth. So truth and mantra are same, is same.
Yeah. Yes. Mantras, Vedic mantras. The Vedic mantras, they are truth. Satyasya Satyam. That's how the Upanishad describes the mantras. They are Satyasya Satyam. There are Satya. There is a temporal truth, and then there is a permanent truth also. So there is relative truth and there is absolute truth. So this is they are called as absolute truths. The highest spiritual truth. It's a absolute Satyasya Satyam. So mantra drashta literally means he who sees. Sees in the sense we have to say within quote. Sees means is a divya chakshu. It does not mean he sees with a normal vision. It is experiences or prati bodha viditam matam. Uh, both Thakur also says both in every moment of your existence you experience that truth. It's a what you see is nothing but what you experience, and this experience also has a sense of duality. There is the experiencer and there is something that is experienced. But in the highest truth, there is neither experiencer nor the experienced. But because of the limitation of our words, we cannot experience it. So when we say he sees, or he says apnoti, Brahmavid apnoti param. So Brahmavid attains the highest. It means there is some travel involved. So all these have been discussed in the Bhashyas, and everything says it is a limitation of our words that this highest truth cannot be experienced, but because it is non-dual, it cannot be reduced into words. So we say it, we seize the truth, we attain the truth, we reach the truth. But actually, truth and you are not separate. There is only one.
Thank you very much. If there are any other question from anyone, please speak up.
It's mute, but I'm not able to read it, where it is.
Let me check. Oh, yes. Shriyans, are you there? Then you can read it out, or Mark, read it out. Or okay, Shriyans, please go ahead.
Just you can summarize. Others can leave. Those who interested, they can stay back. Yes. Yes, go on.
So Maharaj, I read the Mandukya Upanishad just the first time, and there these 19 gates were mentioned, the Ekon Vinshati Mukha. So my question is that how much of these 19 sort of gates uh, uh, are inherited by us from our ancestors, and how much is it from our past lives? And the other question is that when I study these 19 gates, I can easily identify the karmendriyas and gyanendriyas. But when it comes to the antakaran, I find it very difficult to in real life to identify that where do these four parts of the antakaran function and how do they function. So yeah, this is my question.
Actually, it is a matter of common experience. It is not something very mystical. Antakarana as manas, buddhi, chitta, and ahankara. So first start with the chitta. Chitta is it is defined as the storehouse of all our experiences, all the samskaras which we acquire in all our births. It is stored in that portion of the antakarana. It is just like a hard disk. And why we say hard disk? Why we say it is stored there? Because if this memory is not there, then how will you explain our tendencies? We do not. There is one Western philosophy which says every child comes to this world with a clean state of mind. It does not carry any past impressions on that. But Vedanta says we no child, we don't come with a clean state of mind. Rather, we bring all the impressions which we have acquired in the previous birth. With that mind alone, we come. And that explains so many of our uh, abilities, our attitudes, our interest. If everyone comes with a clean state, then everyone will have an equal chance in doing anything well. Then everything will be decided by the external circumstances. But we find when external circumstances being the same, even in a same family, two children, they take a totally divergent path. One may be a highly virtuous person and another may be a totally sinful man. So what makes the difference if both come with a clean state of mind and were brought up by the same parents in the same atmosphere? So that means that their mind carried a previous samskaras. Where do the samskaras are stored? These samskaras are stored in a portion of the antakarana, which we called as a chitta. And from that samskaras, only a small amount of that memory becomes active in our current life. Much of that remains in dormant state. So this much. And then in the Yoga Sutra, there is a lot of discussion on this. And then Chitta, Manas, Buddhi, Chitta. Manas is the state of emotion, the state of feelings. We all experience different emotions in our life. All emotions, anger, fear, jealousy, and all these emotions. When you experience them, that state of antakarana is the manas. And even indecisive state of mind, whether I should do this or do this, is it good, is it bad? So all these states which we experience, that is the manas. And buddhi is our intellect, which is the reasoning capacity which guides us, which makes us take a decision, which comprehends this world, which acquires this knowledge. So that is the buddhi power. And manas and agankara is the I sense, the feeling of myness, that I as the individual having this body and mind and navigating this world. So this manas, buddhi, chitta and agankara is a matter of common experience for every one of us. So that is called as antakarana. And all this, pancha pranas, pancha indriyas, pancha jnanendriyas, karma indriyas, antakarana, all these you can say they are all matter. They don't have life of their own. They are jada. The only thing that illuminates them, make them come alive is the Chaitanya behind it. So that Chaitanya, in fact, in the Dakshinamurti Stotra, you have a beautiful example. Jnana Chitra Gadodara Stita Deepa Prabha Bhashwaram Jnana Mesya Chakshuradi Karane Vara Bhagi Spandate Janami iti Tameva Bhantam Anubhati Idam Sarvam Tasmai Guru Murtaye Dakshinamurti. Means what it says is, suppose if you have a pot and there are say 19 holes, and in that pot containing 19 holes, you put a light. So from each one of that wall, 19 individual beams of light will come. From outside, you find that there are 19 rays of light, but the source of light is only one. So similarly, these 19 gates, through that each one expresses itself in its own unique way. But the power which is behind that expression is one Chaitanya alone. So through these 19 gates, we have to reach that one source. So the only reason why these discussions are there in the Upanishads is to not to be preoccupied with these 19 things, but to go behind that 19, which that powers all these 19 things, that light which illuminates all the functions, without which all these things become jada. So that consciousness, that is what our focus is. That's where we have to arrive. And these things help us to take to that path, to that source.
Thank you, Swamiji. My one more question is that where I have heard the terms like Shanti of the Chit. So when we do spiritual practice, what happens to the Antakarana?
Antakarana becomes purified. Chitta Suddhi, the main function of of all sadhanas is to first purification of the mind, purification of the Antakarana. What does purification means? Purification means you develop good samskaras, you make your good samskaras stronger, and you subdue your harmful samskaras. So that is what purification is. And slowly in the Yoga Sutra, there is a lot of discussion. And see, the samskaras, the memories, the more you indulge in them, the more powerful it will become. And more you neglect them, ignore them, the more weaker it will become. And so similarly, the sadhana, what you are doing is you are multiplying your good samskaras and you are weakening the bad samskaras. So that's what sadhana is. And once that happens slowly, then the mind becomes pure. The mind becomes pure means the mind becomes full of good samskaras. And when the good samskara, when that happens, then the buddhi will become clear. When the manas won't be subjected to so much vacillations, won't be subjected to so much emotions, there will be stability in the mind. There will be clarity in your thought and reasoning. There will be purity of your mind. There will be a predominance of your good samskaras. All these things happening in your antakarana is called as a chitta suddhi. And that is the primary goal of all sadhana. Chittasya shuddhaye karma natu vastu upalabdhaye. So Shankaracharya says, Tanmana shodhanam karyam prayatnena mumukshuna vishuddhe sati chaitasmin mukti karafalayate. The only purpose, only task before a spiritual aspirant is to purify the mind. Once the mind is purified, the mukti becomes like a fruit on one's palm.
Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you for answering the question.
Okay, thank you.
Pranam Maharaj. Thank you. Good night.